Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of CamdenU, a financial literacy series where we break down hard to understand topics so you don't have to. Today, we're going to be focusing on first-time home buyers and home ownership in general. And I've got Camden National's very own Dave Secudis with me today. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, of course. Do you want to give a little bit of background about your role at Camden National Bank?
Sure. I'm a residential mortgage loan officer. I've been a residential loan officer now for a little over 20 years, and I came to Camden in January of 2020, and I work out of our Portland office and work with buyers of all shapes and sizes.
Awesome. So you probably work with first-time home buyers a lot then.
Most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Do you find that a lot of first-time home buyers need a little bit more guidance and education throughout the process?
So I think all buyers need
Yeah.
a lot of guidance and education, no matter how many times you've bought a home. But I think first-time home buyers certainly they don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
When I was buying my first home, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of fun to work with first-time home buyers. It's fun to take that educational role in the process and to see people gain an understanding and build confidence in what they're doing.
Yeah, well, that's what we're here for. So I've got a few commonly asked questions from first-time home buyers that I'd like to go over with you, if that's okay.
I'd love that.
Awesome. So the first question, very broad, is just how do I even start the home buying process? You know, from budgeting to getting pre-approved, kind of what's the general steps you would suggest or recommend?
Yeah. Well, I think in general, the first step is a phone conversation with a mortgage professional. And depending on where somebody is in the process, that first conversation might just be about sharing resources. So resources like mainhomeworks.org, which is where you can sign up for a first-time homebuyer education course that's really valuable. There's a website called readynest.com that has a lot of really neat tools and articles on it. They have budget worksheets, so you can create a budget to start to get a sense of what might be affordable for you. I think for a lot of first-time home buyers, when you're doing the mortgage planning, the home ownership planning, the first thing we want to try to understand is affordability. What do we think is affordable? Because the homeowner is the one that's going to determine that.
Yeah.
The bank, the lender, we don't necessarily know what is affordable to somebody unless we ask them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what a home buyer will qualify for a mortgage payment is more than what they're comfortable affording.
Yeah.
So doing some sort of some research into your own expenses, trying to understand, what would be affordable for a monthly mortgage payment, understand what would be affordable for out-of-pocket costs like down payment and settlement costs. If you have a handle on those affordability pieces, you can have a more productive conversation with a mortgage professional.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. There's definitely needs to be more resources talked about more often with going into the process of affordability. So I think that's awesome. Kind of talking about the same subject with affordability and down payments, how much should a down payment really be? I feel like that's a question that's asked a lot of times because we don't really know the exact percentage or number, or how do we get there?
It's a really good question. So a lot of this comes back to what a buyer can afford. And, you might have a buyer might have a certain amount of money in a bank account, a certain amount of money in a savings account. It's probably not wise to spend all of that money on a home purchase. We want to have some money set aside for reserves, for emergencies, those kinds of things. There are loan programs, out there that have down payments as low as 0%, 3%, 5%, kind of all the way up the ladder. Mortgage lending ultimately is about assessing risk, and a mortgage lender is going to look at risk. Look at a few primary areas for risk: the percentage of someone's down payment, their credit score, the type of property they're buying. Is it a primary residence? Is it a vacation home? And what type of property is it in terms of, is it a single family home? Is it a multifamily home? Is it a condo? All of these things help a lender establish risk, which ultimately might determine the loan program that a buyer is recommended for, that might determine the interest rate that a buyer qualifies for. And so with the down payment, the larger the down payment is, the lower the risk assessment, would likely be from a lender, and that might allow for lower interest rates, lower monthly payments, more affordability at a higher price point, possibly for a buyer. Um, but at the end of the day, not every buyer has a lot of money for down
Yeah.
payment. So it's important to know that there are loan programs out there that allow for lower down payments. Um, Lower down payments sometimes come with monthly mortgage insurance as part of a monthly payment. That is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Mortgage insurance gets a bad rap, but ultimately it is a tool that allows somebody to buy a home with less money down. This gets into when's the right time to buy.
Yeah.
I think this, we can kind of segue into maybe that question, which is not on your list.
No, I like it. I like the freestyle.
Yeah. But when is the right time to buy? And I think the right time to buy is generally when you can afford it. If you're in a position where you can afford a monthly mortgage payment, you can afford a home in the market, where you live. You don't need to have a 20% down payment or a large down payment to buy a home. If you can get into home ownership, in an affordable manner and start building equity in the property at a younger age, I think that really benefits you over time in your life in terms of building wealth and maybe having more flexibility financially. And I know that's been my personal experience with my wife and I. So I really try to encourage that when I'm speaking with younger people. And I think if younger people that are interested in buying a home can establish some affordability targets, establish a budget, establish some savings targets, understand maybe what a target down payment might be for a home in their market that would suit them, that would net them an affordable payment. That's a good way to start the process. And I think you start that, going back to your prior question, with a phone call to a loan officer,
Yeah.
and then looking at some of these initial resources and working with a professional that's experienced, that's going to look at that individual buyer's financial picture.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for a lot of younger people, the idea of a 20% down payment or interest rates, especially in kind of the climate that we're in right now, is a little bit daunting for some people. So I think it's good advice to just pick up the phone and talk to somebody and figure out where you're really at, because it's not one size fits all.
And the media, I think, is great. We love the news and everything, but the news is national and real estate is local.
Yeah.
And so when we hear obviously about how expensive real estate is. Prices are high, rates are high, homes are maybe difficult to afford. I think that's part of your conversation with a loan officer, is understanding what a monthly payment might look like in a price range that you have interest in. What a down payment might look like in order to get an affordable payment, for your budget. Not making assumptions about those things, and actually, doing some math with a mortgage professional, getting that information, and then forming an action plan, which for some people might be immediately getting pre-qualified for a mortgage and starting a home purchase, and for some people might be taking a step back and establishing a savings plan, maybe working on certain things to build credit, maybe doing certain things to focus on a career and building, building towards a higher level of income. There are all sorts of different scenarios that I think you are exploring, or you're going to start to sort of explore at that early initial stage of the mortgage planning or home purchase planning process.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. And now, kind of talking about mortgages, also, I do have the question of, in general, what is a mortgage and why
Yeah.
do most people need one?
Great question. Yeah. So a mortgage is a loan that a bank or a mortgage lender will give a buyer to assist them with the money needed to purchase a property. So if I want to buy a home for $400,000, and I have $20,000 for a down payment, that would be a 5% down payment. I don't have enough money to buy that house, of course, but I might have enough money where a bank or a lender would give me a loan, would give me a mortgage, to finance the remainder of that purchase price. And that commonly is what we're doing, right? We are giving mortgages, we're giving loans to buyers to finance the majority of the purchase price of the property. and that home buyer has cash, has down payment money to come up with the difference between the purchase price and the amount of the mortgage or the loan that the lender is providing.